Awesome. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Public Allies. Tonight, I'm joined by Romina. We are going to have a really cool presentation tonight. But before we get started with that, I'm going to share a little bit about who Public Allies is, a little bit about me, your host, and then we'll talk about Romina and we'll get started with the presentation. So, Public Allies is a nonprofit organization that helps to support the most vulnerable people in society. And we do unique webinars, roundtables, interviews, and business promotions to spread awareness about perspectives, information, and different ways of healing. We at Public Allies believe there is more than one way of healing. Now, a little about me, your host. My name is Jacob Lethbridge. I'm a mindset, health, and fitness coach on a mission to help people change their mindset around fitness while getting in the best shape of their lives. I believe that life can be looked at as an amazing adventure and a game that we have the choice in which character that we choose to play. Will you be the hero, the villain, or just a bystander? I'm currently in the process of writing my next book, and I am really pumped about it because it's going to be a whole bunch of stories. But enough about me. Let's get into our guest, Romina. Romina Kwong is a sustainability consultant, environmental expert, and advocate. She helps discouraged, overwhelmed event planners and entrepreneurs to proactively include eco-friendly standards into their business so that their business practices are both beneficial to their community and for the planet. She has over 12 years of experience in the hospitality industry and a degree in environmental studies. She brings creative strategies to resolve supply chain management concerns or even while vetting event vendors. She has been featured on the Collective Wealth podcast, and her signature holistic approach speaks for itself. Welcome, Romina.
Thank you so much, Jacob. And thank you everyone who's joining. So today we're going to talk about greening your business from the inside out, how to internally shift your business to be more sustainable.
Awesome. So I'm going to start your presentation here, and I'll be
Awesome.
back on at the end. I'm also going to link, for those of you just joining, I'm linking a copy of the workbook that Romina's attached for this. I'm putting it in the comments. It's also in the description. So make sure you check out there for the workbook that goes along with this presentation. See you later.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jacob. So the first thing I want to ask all of you is whether it's in your personal life or your business, I want you to share with me in the comments one word to describe your sustainability journey thus far. And while you're letting me know, I'm going to share with you what my word or phrase rather is, and that is incremental yet impactful. And so let me explain why. While I was studying environmental studies for my undergraduate degree, I wanted to take action in my personal life and was wondering what I could do that would have impact. And so it actually ended up starting with period products. So I slowly transitioned from using plastic applicator tampons to cardboard and then eventually testing out the ones that had no applicator at all. It was definitely a challenge and a little bit icky. Then eventually I found and discovered menstrual cups, which become widely popular now, and I've started using one and haven't looked back since. So my name is Romina, and I'm the founder of Eco-Friendly Events. And shortly after completing my degree, I went back to school for event management. And while working in the industry, I saw a huge gap between environmental sustainability and the events industry, which is when I started my business. Since the pandemic, however, and the lack of in-person events, I've shifted towards helping businesses to do the same through co-creating a customized plan for implementation, as well as through my sustainability mastermind and corporate team workshops. So today we're going to chat through what your digital impact is, your sustainability values, beliefs, and its importance, creating and using your own question guide, auditing yourself, so your business, vetting eco-friendly alternatives. Then, if I have your permission, I'd love to share with you how we can work together. So we've got the next 60 minutes, and I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So I'll be taking questions at the end. However, feel free to type them out in the comments throughout, and I will answer them when I get to it. All right. So first, I want to bring it back to the basics. Some of you have started sharing with me what your eco journey is thus far, whether it's from the very beginning, you're in conversation, or maybe you're completely overwhelmed. But I want to ask you why you care about the environment. Why is it a hot topic? Why do you care? So let me know in the comments, and I would love to know. So for me, I believe in preserving it and our planet specifically for future generations. So something that we've learned from our indigenous peoples, that you only take what you need and preserve the rest for future. I also firmly believe that we all have a purpose and a gift to share with the world. And well, without a planet, no one would be able to do what they want to do. So that's why I think it's important that we should care about the environment. It impacts every single one of us. So, what about going digital? Apart from protecting the planet, and we always think about, reducing our physical waste, but what about our digital impact, especially in the last 18 months? What have we been doing? We've been totally virtual for most of us. And so, what is the impact of that exactly? So, I want to share a few facts with you all. And the first one is, in the US, data centers are responsible for about 2% of the country's electricity use. Data centers are defined as a large group of networked computer servers typically used by organizations for the remote storage, processing, or distribution of large amounts of data. They need to run 24/7 to be able to give you the ability to access everything from social media, your website, or shopping online at all times of the day. Many of them, unfortunately, run on non-renewable resources like oil, coal, and gas. When you think about using, sitting down at night watching Netflix, if you flip on your television to watch Netflix, around half the power actually goes into powering the TV, and half the energy actually goes into powering Netflix. So when you think about streaming services like Netflix and Spotify, it's not just about using the energy and electricity that your device is using or plugged into. It's also about all the other energy and power that goes into powering these data centers 24/7. And finally, if every adult in the UK sent one less thank you email, it could save just over 16,400 tons of carbon a year, which is the equivalent of just over 3,000 diesel cars off the road. And I love this fact because it lines so well with my phrase and my values around incremental yet impactful action. So it's just one less thank you email that can have so much more impact if we all did it together. And then if you think about all of our video chats that we've been having to get that human connection this past year, well, by turning off your camera during video meetings, it helps reduce your carbon footprint of the call by up to 96%. So at this moment in time, if you are watching, if you are in a meeting or you're going to be in a meeting, think about whether you need to keep that camera on. If it's a presentation like this, maybe turn your camera off. And if it's a meeting where you do need to be interacting and talking, maybe that's the opportunity to keep your camera on. So what can you start doing today exactly about all of these things that I've just shared with you? What the heck can you start doing? Well, the first thing is less emails. So like the fact that I shared, you can send one less thank you email starting today or tomorrow. Another thing you can start doing is actually unsubscribing from emails you no longer read or care about. I know I have a junk email where every time I went into a store, they'd be like, oh, sign up for our email list and you get 10% off today. Done that. And instead of getting all of those emails accumulating, unsubscribe as they come in. It's a really big job to do it all at once, but as emails come in, just hit unsubscribe. Then you also want to think about clearing your inbox and all of your folders that you may have that have, all the important details. Because whoever is hosting your email, their data centers are constantly running to keep the data online. Yes, Jacob says, I'm guilty for that. I have so many junk emails. Yes, we all are. So the second thing you can think about is updating your website. So if you have a business or you're part of an organization that has a website, these are some things you can think about in order to reduce the impact there. So reducing the number of images and videos that you might have, And if you really thinking about it is if they are necessary for your website and what purpose they serve. Is it just to look pretty, or does it actually help convey the information better? So the more images that you use and the larger those image files are, the more data that is needed to transfer those images and used up. The same way that your website would take longer to load photos and videos is the same way you can think about it when it comes to the amount of energy used. The second thing you want to consider when you're updating your website or thinking about creating a website is carefully choosing your fonts and the number of fonts that you use, because data is needed to load those font files too. A really good tip is to actually use fonts like Arial and Times New Roman, because these some fonts can be used without necessarily loading any font files, because most devices already have these font types. So those are a couple of things that you can go right now and start doing and clearing out, or start updating one web page at a time. And then the last thing you can think about with your website is switching to a greener website host. So as I mentioned, some of these hosts have used a lot of non-renewable energy resources. Others will use renewable resources. And then there are other ones that will actually purchase carbon offsets as well. So there's a number of options there if you are looking to switch your website host. And to kind of explain a little bit further about what carbon offsets are, I know they're a huge green buzzword, but the idea is that companies will purchase carbon offset credits to become carbon neutral, which basically are fancy words for if you're polluting into the atmosphere, you're releasing emissions, your business or in your personal life, you can basically subtract that carbon by purchasing these carbon offset credits, and that will go towards projects like solar panels or wind farms. The next thing you can start doing almost immediately is unplugging your devices when they're fully charged or not in use. I'm 1,000% guilty of this all the time with my laptop specifically. But when I notice, I take a glance and I see that it's at 100%, then I will unplug it so that I'm solely relying on the laptop's battery versus taking energy and electricity from the wall. Same thing for everyone's cell phones. Unplug that cord. It's using a lot of phantom energy, and although it's minimal, as you can recall, all of our little actions add up and they do count. So something that is very simple to do. And Aisha says that her TV is always plugged in. So a good tip for that, what I do specifically at my desk, for example, everything stays plugged in, but I have a power bar. So at the end of the night, I will turn off that power bar when I'm away from my desk, and it just cuts that phantom energy right at the source. So when it's possible, you want to have phone calls or texts over a video call. So having a good old phone call like we did in the 90s, it actually uses a different technology. It's not using the internet and not using up data centers. Same thing with texts. It's not using the internet. So it will not only save you from Zoom fatigue, which I think we're all feeling right now, it's using the different technology. And then using a smaller device. So when you do have to be on a video call where it's not possible to do phone or text, try using a smaller device. So this is especially great for calls with less than 4 people on your phone, because you can still see everybody. And then for up to 10 or so on a tablet, that way you can still see everyone, but you're using up less energy. So the best way to think about this concept is the way that video calls will drain your phone battery faster. It takes far less electricity to charge it back up than it would for your laptop. So just some things to think about. And then finally, with all of our streaming platforms, you want to download and use things in offline mode. So for Netflix, it's a little bit harder if you're always watching new shows or movies and things like that. But for platforms like Spotify, if there's a playlist, for example, or a song that you're playing over and over and over again, then it's actually worth downloading and using Spotify in offline mode. So that way you're cutting the energy sort of basically in half, where you're not using the data centers. It's just locally on your device and on your phone or laptop or wherever it is. And if you're interested in actually learning how to turn things into offline mode for Spotify, I actually have an episode on my Instagram, on my IGTV, under the Wednesday Wisdom series that walks you through that process. If you're still curious or want the direct link, I can put it in the comments at the end. All right. So what are your values? Your values are basically the things that you believe in, the way you live and work. And they generally dictate or determine your priorities when it comes to your purchasing decisions and the organizations you choose to support. So what exactly are your sustainability values, or how I will reference them moving forward, your eco values? So your eco values is basically taking your values as it pertains to environmental sustainability and using it as a guide or point of reference when you're making decisions. So I want to ask all of you, have you ever felt conflicted by a purchase between two products because you didn't know which one was greener? Let me know in the comments. Give me a yes if this has ever happened to you before. Never crossed his mind, Jacob said. Okay, I mean, fair. Sometimes you see a label that's green, you're like, okay, good, we're going to go with that one, but it's not always the case. So we're going to talk about the importance of your eco values. So similar to your values in life, your eco values are unique to you. And it doesn't mean you don't care about anything else, but it is about really ranking them to figure out what is most important to you. So once you establish what your values are, your eco values, you're able to communicate them through your marketing and your website, and you'll be able to attract your ideal clients and customers that resonate with those same values. Finally, by brainstorming and figuring out what these values are for your personal life and your business, it will make it a whole lot easier to make that decision between two green products or purchases. So how do we use our values? So first thing is we need to determine what your values and beliefs are. This is where it's great to brain dump everything you care about when it comes to sustainability in one page, and then feel free to categorize them into business versus personal. I know for me, it overlaps a lot. The second thing is you want to basically walk away from that brain dump for a couple of days and then come back to it. Then you're able to sort of narrow it down to maybe 3 to 5, and then you can rank them in order of importance. After ranking them, you'll want to put these eco values into your question guide and then use your question guide. So let's create a question guide together. So as Jacob mentioned, he did link the workbook that you can download from my website at the end, but we will address it together afterwards. Okay, so here in the workbook, you have the option to describe the word that I mentioned and to brain dump all of your values. And then you're going to really narrow it down for your sustainability values. So for example, some sustainability values, I'm going to list my top 5 or the 5 that come to mind right now. I like things that are made to last, reusable, made locally, fair trade, and compostable. So you can basically keep going, keep brain dumping, but I'm going to give you my top 5, and then you're going to rank them. So I'm just going to leave the ranking as is. I'm just going to copy and paste that. Great. And then from basically your eco values that you've established, you put them into the question guide. So this is the question guide here. So the first one is made to last. So the question that you're going to form is the item made to last? Then the second one was, is it reusable? Third one, is it made locally? So when you think of made locally, there's different definitions of this, but the most local that you can be is basically within 100 kilometers or 60 miles. And then is it fair trade? And then can the item be composted? Cool. So now that you have all 5 of your questions, you can actually use these answers. So they're drag and drop, and you're welcome to right click, copy, and paste to use the ones that are the most applicable. So is the item made to last? I'm going to use the not applicable. So you just drag and drop. If you have any questions about the workbook thus far, let me know in the comments and I'd be happy to answer it now. All right, so now you have all of your questions inputted into the question guide. All right. So this is how we're going to go back to the presentation. So in order to audit yourself, basically, like what Aisha said, when you're planning for home renovations, like your faucets, shower heads, etc., but also specifically for your business, is you want to list all of the things that you use day to day. So that's, your laptop, any packaging materials, if you're product-based business, any programs you're using like Zoom, you want to list all of those things out. And then you're going to use your question guide to evaluate every single item. And then you're going to evaluate your results. So let's go back to the workbook so I can show you how to use that. So on my desk, I actually have this reusable straw. I'm going to count it as a item that I use in my business when I'm sitting at my desk. So let's evaluate the straw. Is the item made to last? I'm going to go with yes. It's made to last a long time, as in I'm not using it just once. Is the item reusable? Definitely yes. Is the item made locally? I don't actually know where it's made. You can definitely obviously spend your time doing the research the company, ask questions to the company, whoever made your product, and just ask them down their supply chain where it came from. So I don't know in this moment in time, so we're going to go with unknown. Is the item fair trade? I do not think so. There was no fair trade certification for it. And can the item be composted? No, it cannot. So now you're going to tally all of your results using the point system. So that's 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. And then you put the total points in the box at the bottom. So that's 3 points. So you're going to go through all of the items that you use for your business and evaluate them against your eco values. Then you'll see at the end or at the bottom where it ranks. If it's between 4 to 5 points, it's not sustainable. If it's between 2 to 3, it's somewhere in between. And then 0 to 1 is pretty sustainable. So again, it really depends on what your values are. A reusable straw arguably is not sustainable, but it is really relative to your values, right? Love that, Jacob. I see that you have reusable straws and a water bottle. Amazing. All right. So I forgot to duplicate this. So let me just go through and delete. Okay, so going back to the presentation, after you audit all of the items that you have, you are going to go ahead and vet some suppliers and eco-friendlier alternatives. So for example, I don't know, your packaging supplies, for example. Once you've evaluated your packaging supplies, once you've used it all up, maybe you're now going to look for eco-friendlier alternatives, and you're going to vet those alternatives. So the first thing is you're going to research what those options are. And then you're going to use the question guide to, again, evaluate those options against your eco values. And then make the eco-friendlier swap when you're able to, of course, depending on financial and other resources. So let's copy that again. So when you're evaluating between two items, this is where it becomes really helpful. So for example, for me personally, it could be looking at a new agenda or a notebook. So that's what I'm going to use as an example for this, but you can use absolutely everything. We can use packaging as well. If you have an example in mind, please let me know in the comments and I can use it live. Otherwise, I'm going to use an example that I will choose. All right. So let's go with packaging, actually. So let's go with a cardboard box versus a compostable mailer. Okay. So is the item made to last? I'm going to say we're going to start with the cardboard box first, and we're going to say no. Is it reusable? I'm going to say yes. You can reuse a cardboard box. I use them all the time for regifting, really. Is the item made locally? I'm going to say unknown. Is the item fair trade? No. Can the item be composted? And technically, yes, it can be thrown. Depending on where you live, it can be composted. It's usually recycled, so maybe we'll go with no. All right. So tally up the points. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the points for the cardboard box is 4. So now we'll use a new sheet, question guide, with the same values and evaluate the compostable mailer. So is the item made to last? No. Is it reusable? Not really. Was it made locally? I don't know. Is it fair trade? No. And can it be composted? Yes. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4 again. Okay. So with this specific example, it actually ended up tying. So 4 and 4. So really, then it can come down to maybe the cost or the pricing that you make your final decision. But based on your eco values, they're equally the same. So it does help you make that decision more clearly. But of course, there's other factors as well. All right. So I would love for you to give me permission. I would love to share with you how you can work with me. So give me a yes or a thumbs up in the comments to let me know. All right. So I just want to introduce to all of you the Eco Standards package that I do offer. So it starts with a sustainability questionnaire because you know your business best, and I need your help to bring clarity and focus to our first call. So I'll bring the environmental expertise, but you need to let me know how your business functions and the behind the scenes. Then during our first 60-minute call, I will flesh out with you what your eco values are for various scenarios, because different values sort of shift depending on what the item or service or project management system you're using. It kind of shifts accordingly. And then I will take a couple of weeks to do a ton of research and to create a customized report that will outline your sustainability messaging, your values, as well as the step-by-step guide for each aspect of your business. So the same way that we created a mini version of this question guide as an overall in general, I will create a detailed one for every single item. So when we're looking at your packaging, when we're looking at maybe the type of tape you're going to use, the products or the supply that you're going to source, I'll create one for every single one, including all of your online systems. So whether you choose Zoom over Google Meet, whether you choose which what's the word I'm looking for, platforms that you're going to use, I will create one for every single one in order to best evaluate and have your eco values shift accordingly. Then I'll send you the report for you to review, and then we'll go through in our final debrief meeting, we'll go over the report and any questions that you may have with regards to using it and applying it to your business. And I know that you're not going to implement all of these things right away, so I'll be offering ongoing email support for 6 months. Now, I normally offer this package for $18.75, but for all of you who've tuned in from Public Allies, I will be offering it for $15.75, and I'll even add an additional 3 months of support, so that'll be the total of the 6 months. So if this aligns with you and it's something that you're interested in doing for your business, then book a free call with me and we can chat to see if it's the right fit. So you can head over to ecofriendlyevents.ca/contact us and we can chat about it further. Now, if anyone has any questions, please let me know and type it into the chat below. I'd be happy to answer it now. You're welcome, Aisha, for the offer. And as mentioned, if you'd like a copy of the workbook, you can head to ecofriendlyevents.ca/workbook. And for more inspiration or eco-friendly education, you can follow me on social media at ecofriendly.events. All right.
Awesome. Thanks. That was really, really informative, Romina. I was like looking at myself and my whole setup through the entire time. I was like, oh my God, you would kill me if if you saw the amount of wasted energy I have going on right now, like the camera, the 2 lights, my kitchen lights on, my TV's plugged in, but it's actually turned off for once. So that's something positive.
Nice.
It's still plugged in, but at least it's turned off. That was actually incredibly informative. It was stuff that I've never really thought about. And, you know, I'm glad that you brought it up because it's something I'm going to start thinking about more of now. Like, especially when you brought up the thing, like, do you think about like the eco-friendly choices you're making when you're buying something? It's like, no, I used to just go like, if it's like if the light burnt out or something, I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to grab whatever one's the cheapest. Right. And in most cases, like the most eco-friendly one wasn't always. So I was just like, oh, I'll just grab like the $2.
And that's where it starts, right? Like sometimes it is that eco-friendly option. Because when you think of eco-friendly or buying eco-friendly products, you think of like the fancy new thing. And it doesn't have to be. You can buy things secondhand. Sometimes it is making an investment, right? So it really depends. Like you mentioned, like your reusable straws, like buying a pack of plastic straws is so much cheaper. But the long term, the reusable straw will last longer.
Yeah, definitely. And I've noticed a huge difference. And like the thing I love about even the reusable straws is like, since they're like the metal ones, right? Like we can bring them anywhere. So like, it doesn't really matter. Like, obviously, like, you know, the plastic ones you can just throw away, but then it's like, where do those end up? Right. Like
where is away? When we say throw away, where is away?
My garbage can.
Yeah, but then that goes to the landfill. There? That's someone's backyard.
And how long?
A lot of us are very privileged where we don't live next to a landfill, but some people do, and like it affects all of us because it goes back into the earth. It's a whole cycle.
Yeah. So I'm definitely going to be thinking a little bit more about the choices I make with stuff. And like, I'm someone who's on my computer all day. I have 2 monitors constantly going. This will give me a good excuse to turn my camera off during Google Meets with my company. I'll just say, you know what? I'm being eco-friendly. I'm turning my monitor off. Aisha says, I'll just highlight the question as well. Sometimes companies start eco-friendly choices, but the cost or the work is so high that they end up doing the easy options. What would you suggest?
So again, it goes back to their values. Like, what is it that they care about? And yes, financial is a huge one, but is it something that you're investing in for the long term, right? So, for example, like I made an investment, financial investment to buy a nicer microphone, and this is I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to have it last a very long time. Up front, did it cost more than the headphones that came with my phone? Absolutely, but it really depends on what those choices are. Is making those investments, is it something that they can rent instead? And when you rent something, it generally means that somebody else is in charge of fixing it. So if you think about when you live somewhere, if you're renting a place, your landlord's in charge, whereas if you own your place, you have to fix it. So there's a lot of options, and it really depends on what those things are, Aisha. But I would love to chat with them and look at all the ideas and things that we can come up with.
Thanks for the question, Aisha. That was really good, because sometimes I feel like a lot of companies, they try something, but then it doesn't work, and then it just kind of fizzles off. So I think that was really good that you brought that up. If there's any other questions, let me know. We can ask. Now's the time. Romina's here. She's live. The workbook was really good. It's in the description, so make sure you check that out. If not, Romina will be able to come back and check out any questions that maybe you're watching on the replay and you have questions. Romina will be able to check back. And with that, thank you so much, Romina. I really appreciate you having you on. Public Allies, thanks you for coming on and doing this webinar and really teaching us all something new. So thanks for coming on.
No problem. Anytime. Happy to be here.
Okay. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We will see you in the next webinar. Bye-bye.